First item on the agenda is the annual SEC training and presented by Susan Edwards.
I appreciate being able to be here with you guys tonight. We'll try to keep this brief, as I think most of you have heard this. Chris, some of it might be new to you, but you've been through it once now. But thank you. It is a statutory requirement that you all are trained every year. So we want to start with the good news. The state trust distribution, there's the number. Leon wishes we got the whole thing. And the amount that Canyon schools get, and this is an important number. It's the amount that our schools, and more importantly, our teachers and parents, get to really direct at their school towards academic achievement. And that is so very important that we have that responsibility to be good stewards of this. And that part of that is your role as well. So the school community council role, be good stewards of the trust. And that mostly just means follow the law, right? You hold your elections. We'll talk a little bit more about that. You that everybody is trained. School board is responsible for that training. A small committee of us, me, Alice Pegg, Nancy, Amber, we all have met to plan this year's training. And then they know their bylaws. Every one of the schools in Canyons have bylaws in addition to their rules of order and procedure. And to keep those updated, to know what they say. And this year, a couple of them have called as we've had new principals moving around. And so we have gotten to read a few of their bylaws with them and found a few glitches. So we're going to really concentrate a little bit on that this year. 100% compliance, and that sounds lofty, but we're usually pretty good at compliance. The state every year calls and says, how do you do it? And a lot of that is the structure you all as a board have set up with us. With me and Alice, I do compliance and work with the website. Janelle works with the website, and we do a lot of the postings that are required here in-house in the district to take that weight off our schools. And then the things the schools have to do, they all have web managers that receive a little stipend to help with. So that just takes the weight off there and becomes more consistent. So that's one way. And another is just how much you all are engaged in reading the plans, in checking and understanding, does this meet the requirements of the law? And then communicate with employees and parents. So there are teachers on every SCC. Those teachers are supposed to be coming in and out of faculty meeting to say, hey, this is the money we have this year. This is what we're considering. This is what we've spent on last year. This is what we could spend on, and communicating and bringing that to the SCC and back. Same thing for parents. Parents should be finding a way, right, to be able to communicate with the parents and to say, this is what a school community council does. This is how we're trying to improve academic achievement. And then just their fiduciary responsibilities. They're over several plans. They write and approve the land trust plan and the final report. So the land trust plan they do this year will be for next school year. The final report is for last school year. They just need to synopsis it and say, yes, this is how we spent our money. Yes, we stayed on budget, or we didn't, whatever the case may be. They just need to report. And then they're writing the trust plan for next year, while this year they're implementing the plan that was written last year, that you all approved April, May timeframe. Then they have several other plans that they give input and approve. TSSP, the school safety plan, and that's a little bit getting ever increasingly harder to understand as we now have school safety plan like 1, 2, 3, and 10 with all of the new legislation. But this one is the one that the school community council gives input into. It asks the question, what is your biggest safety concern at your school? And it says how do you propose addressing it, or do you need help from the district or departments to address it? And then we proceed on that during the school year and follow up with you in May and with the SCCs to say, was it addressed? If it wasn't, they may roll that over. But we follow up on that. And then digital citizenship, much the same way. That's a kind of three-part. Are you, as an SCC, do you feel like the digital citizenship lessons for the students is adequate and does enough? Do you feel like the training for the parents and information is enough? Can you do more? to bolster either one of those? That's basically the question. And then safe walking routes, they review their plans every year. And then they turn in their safe walking route plan that we receive as a district. Then we meet for all the schools with the different municipalities. And there's all told about 7 that we have to meet with between our different municipalities in the county and UDOT. Then we review and we give input. They review and give input if there are changes to the positive behaviors plan, the electronic device plan, school attendance, and then they can advise and discuss topics. We don't necessarily stop them from discussing anything they want. We do suggest that the discussion happens after they finish their other business, as they have a lot of business to do. And they shouldn't take up their whole meeting with the topic and then not get their work done. So we ask that that be towards the end of the meeting. And they can discuss district and school topics, in particular if you send something out to them for input back. But if not, they can take up other topics and ask for information be brought to them. Your role, you provide training. Yes.
Just really quick, but they cannot talk about individual student or employee members.
Correct. And we cannot present things to them that are
Related to that.
related or confidential in any way, shape, or form.
Clarification.
Board of Education, you provide training. We start those tomorrow. I'll have the dates up in just a minute. And we always provide 6 opportunities, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, over morning, afternoon, and night, so that everybody has an option to find what works best for them. This year, we've broken up into also a basics. We decided it's been long enough and that it was time to do kind of an SEC 101 again. So we'll be doing that short right before we do the general meeting for everybody, for anybody that's new or anybody that wants to come. You review the land trust reports from the previous year for compliance by March 1st. That's that final report that we talked about. You do the land trust plans for next year. You read and approve those. You'll see the date in there. We're going to try to do that approval on May 12th. You approve the TSSP plan, digital citizenships, and the other plans we've talked about. There are some things on there that give you dates and some criteria. Not all of those, you don't receive all of those. You receive assurance that the SEC's looked at them or that they've been reviewed. You only actually have to receive and approve a few of those, the land trust, TSSP, a few of them. Board approval process for the land trust. So I think you've all been through this, Chris, even you've been through this now once, so you probably know this pretty well. We always send anybody can read them, but we have 2 of you assigned to each school to really study and to look at those. 2 board members are assigned to review and approve each school's plan, and then it comes back for a vote of the board if I lost my train of thought. Anyway, questions and corrections that you might have are directed to the school performance directors. They will follow up with the principals and get back to you on any concerns or questions or information you might need in addition. And the board will receive those instructions at the April 15th board meeting from Alice Peck, who oversees the plans. Please read and ask questions as soon as you can. So they start coming in. They may not all be in at the same time, so she will get them out to you as quickly as possible when they are in. And then please don't wait till the night before May 12th to start reading your plans, because if you do have questions, you will not be able, you will not be able to ask questions and us get you information back and still get them approved by the state timeline. And then this is all submitted to USBE with assurance that each school has also completed the TSSP plan. And then that prompts the funding. You do, and just a meeting or 2 ago, you exempted the 2 schools again this year that we've exempted now, going on the 3rd year, I believe, Gold Miner's Daughter and the Life Skills Academy. Any questions on how you go about approving plans? Awesome. The rubric, so the SECs write the plans, they get to determine their greatest academic need, they get to determine what their goals are, their priorities, they set all of that. You review them to say, are their goals measurable? Do they address the academic needs that are spelled out? Sometimes they may have, because they set the TSSP plan first, and then this may address a piece of the TSSP plan. that is the overarching school plan. Sometimes there will be other monies that could address this besides land trust, but they need to show clearly where the money is going, what goal it's going to work towards, and how do they see as they review them if that is if that's measurable, and if they can see if it's working or not, or if they need to make changes. There needs to be an action plan listed with the expenditures. The land trust funds are used towards one or more goals, and they need to set up a contingency plan. If something happens and we don't need the funding for this, then we would spend it on this, or this. And in that case, they don't have to come back to you for an amendment, if that's the case, if they are spending it on one of those. If their plan completely shifts and changes to something new, then they would need to put in for an amendment and bring it back to you. I think the days are over where they're scared of all of you, and used to, they were very scared to file an amendment and thought, oh, this is just gonna be terrible. But I think they're pretty used to you guys going, thanks for being involved in it, and thanks for being aware and getting us good plans. And so I think we've convinced them that y'all aren't scary. We carry over, has to be under 10%. We had 3 schools that got a warning for being over, and they were slightly over, and 1 that got a second warning. If they were to get a third, their funding would be in jeopardy, but we will and have worked with them to make sure that that is not the case. The numbers have to add up. This is really important, that when you're looking at all the numbers and you're reviewing, that you're making sure the numbers add up. And did you want to make a comment on that? Because you're the one that usually catches those.
Yeah, it is really important that those numbers add up. And I know those that are filling out the form, I know the numbers add up, but sometimes it's just a matter of they transpose something or it gets put in the wrong place. So that is someplace where we can be that extra set of eyes on that.
And the last thing is to make sure their signature page is complete. We train them on this, and we want to train you on this, that for the signature page, they are all supposed to sign that they have 1, participated, and 2, agree or disagree. And it doesn't really matter too much, depending on how many disagree, but if a SEC was to have a majority not agree to the plan, they would need to go back to the starting board, right? Starting blocks and start over again. But we've never seen that. If one person says, I don't feel like I participated, or I don't like this goal, that's fine. What that would prompt you all to do is to either ask me or Alice, or to even talk to the SEC member and say, hey, why do you have a concern? And find out what that is. But the signature page is very important for them to communicate with you. We have participated, we agree or not, and for then you to follow up on that with. Any questions on that? Yes, Holly.
I just have 2 comments. So if someone is to not sign and not agree to it, I just want you to clarify with the group, like if it's just 1 or 2, still with the majority, it still passes. But you're advising us to go ahead and follow up just so that we can hear the concern, and then.
Or ask me and Alice may already know what the concern is. So just have a conversation about, do you know why this is? Do you know what it may have been that, one of my favorites a couple of years ago was, well, I never went and participated. And I'm like, that's not on you.
That was good integrity. Okay.
But if somebody really had a disagreement and the group knew it and they still chose to not, it would still pass on majority vote for the SEC. Then you can ask, or we can ask and follow up and say, what were your concerns? And see if it's something that's addressable. But in the end, ultimately, if they've passed it on a majority vote, it would still stand.
Yes. So you're asking us to go ahead and communicate to them just so that we're in the know why. And if it's legitimate, then what would you like us to do with that? Would you like us to refer to you and Alice? Okay, perfect. And then one other question I had. Sorry.
It's fine. Nancy has a question.
Well, just on that point, though, I personally think it's probably better if we as a board member, we see a SEC member doesn't agree with the plan, that we go to the administration, to Susan or Alice, not to that SEC member. I think, and let them handle it and then report back to us what the reason is.
That was why I questioned.
Most likely it's going to be something related to, reading the data or whatever they chose as a measure or an action step. And that's something for the administration, I think, to.
And that was my question when I was asking Susan, would you like us to do it?
My opinion.
Well, and to be clear, Alice and I would probably, we may already know the answer, so it'd be nice to be part of that discussion. I'm never gonna tell one of you, you cannot speak to your constituents. But,
Well, I'm saying, I think it's a better process to
Yes,
go
I would
to them first.
Okay, one other thing I had was with the measurable goals,
yes,
and I've talked to Susan about this a few times. I feel, I really like this as a board member, and I don't know how all of you feel, but I really like to have the growth percentile in there too. Because sometimes if they're saying, okay, we want 75% proficiency, and then you have to refer back and look at, well, what are they at now? It's very clear if you see what's the growth percentile they're going after. With the goals measurable, the funny thing about the way these plans work is they write the goal before their spring testing. And so if they write the goal and they're saying, we want a 2% growth percentile increase, is that a measurable goal? Because they still haven't done spring testing. And so by that
They
time,
never will.
I know, yes, but it, by the
The one
time
I read referred back to their
they do,
December.
that's what they refer back to as their December.
That's the only last date.
Right, but this is my point in all that. If the growth percentile is too small, it's very possible that that growth just would be that growth from the year because of the spring, just from a normal. So is it measurable that the money you're allocating, putting into this actually has had any effect whatsoever on that growth? Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why it's nice to have that growth percentile in there to make sure yes, it's an actually measurable goal.
Most of my schools, because we've asked this before, to please have the two numbers together, actually did do that, and it makes it so
Yes.
much easier.
I've seen a big
Yes.
improvement.
And I think it helps them
Mhm.
say, okay, here's the data and here's this data, and now we can.
Nancy wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I mean, interesting point, and I don't disagree, but I don't think it's our role to say whether a certain measurement the SEC has determined is the right measurement.
I just
No,
don't
it's not.
measure it.
And even though we might not see how it's measurable, they might see it. They were part of that discussion. And if it's something that an instrument or an indicator that they're using that does have a number, and they've set a goal for what that number will be at the end of that year, then in my opinion, it's measurable. It's not, maybe it's not the
and we have,
indicator I would have chosen, but they chose it because of their conversation.
it's they're free to choose and
Yeah,
free
they
to
are.
set theirs. We have set that as one of the things we explain in training this year. So Alice will take a dive into what it means and what it is and encourage it. But then ultimately it'll be up to them.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just good to have it there because although we wouldn't disapprove we wouldn't like refuse it. We would still approve it. It's just nice to even have general feedback from Susan, and we've had this like, hey, if that was a 1% growth, you may naturally get that between December and spring.
And that's a question that you can ask that they can.
Yes, but yes, we still would approve it, but just good feedback.
Okay, go ahead and continue.
Here are the training dates. We start, like I said, tomorrow. If you would like to join us for any, we would strongly encourage you to. They are all on your board calendar. If you need reminders of that, let me know. But those are the dates and when we're doing them. Yeah, I'll stand out of the way. So if anybody else needs to take a picture, y'all can do that. And then, like I said, we strongly encourage you to join us for any or all sessions if you would like. Some of you are actually presenting at some of the sessions. There is a board segment and some of you will present at that. Compliance. The staff check. So this is the one part that the state uses to audit us, and they start, it's all due to the state October 20th. We always back that up into September and try to get it in sooner. But starting October 21st, we and the state start auditing. We try to get ahead of them so that we can make sure that we fare well in this. But they audit several different things on the website for compliance. Again, we input a lot of those. And are in the process of that now. In addition, when you go visit, one of the hardest things for them to understand is that the legal requirement is that the meetings for the year are posted on their website. But there's also a thing that says, and you have to have a public notice for every meeting. And that public notice means that anybody who wants to go, Steve Van Maren wants to go attend SCC, he has to be able to look at a public place and find that, not just when are the meetings of the year, but a notice that this meeting's happening within the week of the meeting. So we strongly encourage them to do that, either on their calendar, their front page of their website, someplace to where you can see. So if you're ever going to visit your SCCs and you try to find a date and you just can't find it, please let me know, because I'll have a discussion about that compliance piece. Elections, this is exciting, I think, very exciting news. We've been asked this forever, is can we do electronic elections? And with the specifics that the state requires in law, we had not previously figured out a way. But Nancy and I and Jeff Murray, we all worked tirelessly this year on trying to figure out what this could look like. And we piloted it at 4 schools, at Brighton, Corner Canyon, Butler, Middle, and Copperview. And truthfully, Brighton was the only one that was planned and the others came up. But what Jeff has created, that the concern is not, it has to be anonymous. So nobody can see how somebody voted. But it also has to be 1 vote per parent. So to try to figure that out when you've got parents and step-parents and co-parents and grandparents and, but Jeff figured out a way that he could capture, Jeff Murray figured out a way that he could capture that pretty darn close. And we piloted it to see how it looked, and it looks really good. And at Brighton and Corner Canyon, it upped the participation from about 40 votes to over 200, which is amazing that you're getting that much more engagement. And Copperview actually put out their paper ballots and had no votes, and then they ended up with several, not a ton, but several. So, but it also helps really get an interest in what is this. So it was very successful. I'm going to recommend that you all send this to policy committee to add in as an option in the future for other for future SCCs to be able to do this. If they have to have an election, they can contact us. We will have to set some more stringent date guidelines, because if Murray and I get them all, it's first week of September, we probably won't be able to meet that demand. But if we move it back and they say we're going to have an election to mid-August, we should be able to meet all the demands of those votes next year. So we're asking for that to go to the policy committee to put in policy that we are allowed to do that. The focus of training this year is new member training. Like I said, Alice will be focusing on plans and data and how to use them together, including what you're talking about, right? SEC bylaws, we're going to make sure that they all are aware and updating those. Safe walking routes. We noticed last year when we really took a deep dive into a couple of them that they had not been looked at for probably many years. I won't say how many, but a long time. So we're going to make sure they know what they're looking at. And know how they make suggestions. And then what does advisory mean? We're going to take a dive into that question. What does this mean to be an advisory body? And then connecting the work of the SCC with the strategic plan that we are all basing everything on. So those are going to be kind of our focuses, as well as just our general. And I think that gets us to the end. It does. Any questions for me? Do you feel well trained?
I tried in the spring to attend pretty much all the SCCs, and I was pleasantly surprised how many of them went to their board and displayed the score. Do you have an agenda for the final meeting or somewhere along that's a requirement that everybody do that?
We do. We have a timeline of what they're supposed to be doing every month, basically. Okay. And then we have every month data that they're supposed to be sharing, how they're supposed to be sharing it, and how they're supposed to update every month anything that's come in or anything that's changed or anything they're testing or what they're seeing as far as their plan, for the current year. These are our goals. This was the data. Everyone should be reviewing what those are and what that looks like for that month.
So,
and the budget.
So that's ongoing. They're supposed to do that
correct
every month.
If there's new information to share, if there's something in there, so there might not be an update for that month, but almost always there's going to be a budget, and there should be probably an update. Like we were spending $10,000 on professional development, and we spent $2,000 last month. That should be ongoing discussion, and then also on the goals if there's been any movement to express. Yeah.
Okay. Good job.
By the time the parents on an SCC leave the SCC, they should be mini trained education experts, mini trained.
Awesome. I think we're good. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to move on to the annual nutrition services report by Sebastian.
Well, I know you guys are pressed on time, so I'm going to go through the slides quickly, but hit on the main points. But feel free if you have any questions regarding, just raise your hand, let me know. But thank you for the opportunity to be before you today. This is just a quick small chart that we have for our department. All I want to say is that this year is the best year ever that we've had more labor in our department. We are not fully staffed, but very close to being fully which we really appreciate it because we can provide a better service for our students. As you know, we oversee the National School Lunch Program and we see the National Breakfast Program. These are just pictures of our most popular items, things that the students are getting on a regular basis. Whenever we can, we try to feature local produce if possible. So these are just things that they really enjoy. And things that are changing for the breakfast and the National School Lunch Program, new regulations came out and they were approved this year. And they demand that we have to implement changes starting July of next year. Some of the things that we're going to be looking at is a reduction in added sugars in the menus. This is the first time that the USDA is looking at taking out sugar from the menus. So we have to limit our calories from 10% from added sugars in an average week. Other things that are changing is over a period of 3 years, we have to reduce sodium again 10% on top of what we are already. As a district, as a state, as a nation, I think we are kind of like working with legislation, letting them see that it's okay to be healthy, but we don't need some flavor. We're just feeding the garbage cans.
That's so true.
And there is no real evidence that a reduction in sodium is beneficial for this younger generation. So we're gonna see if we can do anything about that, but those are the main changes that are happening. As far as whole grains, they allow us to keep doing what we're doing, which is 80% of the grains that we offer must be whole grain. For our breakfast, we also are in compliance with the new state legislation that came out about 3 years ago, the HB 222, that states that for schools that are high on free and reduced, we have to have alternate breakfast programs. So we have breakfast in the classroom at East Meadville, Mid Valley, Copperview, and Sandy. Many other schools this year started as an alternative breakfast program, and they're serving breakfast as a second chance after the bell rings. And you can see that elementary schools is Midvale, Bella Vista, Crescent, East Sandy, Glacier Hills. Middle schools is Eastmont, Midvale Middle, Mount Jordan, and Union. And high schools is Hillcrest, Jordan, and Diamond Ridge. So what that means is that any student that is late, they can come to the cafeteria after the bell rings, they still get a breakfast and not be penalized because they were late to get the meal or missing instructional time. Now, we try not to advertise this much because we also want to encourage students being on time and not miss instructional time. But that really gives the chance for those students who may come from a home that has food insecurities to get a breakfast even after the bell if they were late. We also run the Seamless Summer Program, and this allows us to give us free meals for anybody who is 18 or younger during the summer months at certain locations. And this year we did have an audit from the state on our summer programs, and it went really, really well. They couldn't find any findings actually. We were doing everything right as far as in compliance with the regulations and the meals that we offer and the nutritional content and all of the operations of the program. So very grateful to offer that. On that specific program, we normally don't make money. We just mainly offer it as a service for those communities that rely on school meals during the summertime, that the school is out, that they can still go and get breakfast and lunch at no cost for the students. We also run the Fresh Fruits and Vegetable Program, and this impacts six schools, Glacier Hills, Sandy, Copperview, Mid Valley, Midville, and East Midville. And they get additional funding for fresh produce during the year. This year we got $247,500 to provide fresh produce for those schools. So they get snacks in the middle of the day between breakfast and lunch twice a week in the form of fresh produce. We also get to introduce them to things that they normally do not get at home, like tomorrow they're getting rambutans. Earlier in this week they got dragon fruit that I don't normally get. They're fun and flavorful. So this is just a few pictures of things that we do with the fresh produce to encourage students to eat more the produce that we offer. We also have the snack program, which Title I schools, we support that after school snack programs that they offer. And we make sure that also we provide that as a free service for them. And of course, they have to be in compliance with the USDA guidelines for the snacks. And as you know, we have a cafe here in the building, which we've had to make some changes to make it affordable still for employees. And it's been very well received, all of the changes that we've made. Some of them is serving meals in reusable dishes instead of to-go containers. We see a huge price increase on those containers. So to keep it affordable for all employees, we are encouraging them to use the reusable dishes, put them at a station, and we are just dishwashing them, which also is good for the environment, I think. So that's really good. They've been appreciating that. And we also do caterings for trainings and events that are happening mainly here in this building, but we also have catered to the schools as well. We always take pride in connecting the classroom to the cafeteria, and I think the component of nutrition is that it sets kids to success, not just academically as they go through the K-12 system, also for life, as you build healthy habits during your childhood. So we have for that having a yearly promotion. This year is a Harry Potter based promotion that is the theme is school meals are magic, but we also allow our dietetic interns, who are registered dietitians or candidates to be registered dietitians, to go to the classrooms and teach nutrition education on a as needed basis. We offer it to the health teachers and they call us if they want us to do that. That is our poster for this year.
So cute. That is really cute.
We will have at least once a year a menu. Schools get to choose what the date of the promotion will be, and we'll have a menu based on Harry Potter and games and also nutritional content for the students to participate at lunch. Okay, at free and reduced percentages, we're seeing an increase this year on our free and reduced percentages. We jumped to 26%, which is higher than previous years on free, and about 4%, a little lower than previous years, but altogether 30% of our district qualifies now for free and reduced. We're seeing an impact on this on our meal counts as well. We're serving about 900 more meals per day that we did this time of year last year. And we attribute this to the increase in free and reduced families depending more and more on the services for school meals. We also were able to recertify the CEP program, the community eligibility, which allows schools to offer free breakfast for all of the students at the school. And we were able to add one school to the CEP program. So currently we have Copperview, Meadville, East Meadville, Mid Valley, and we have Meadville Middle, and now we added Sandy Elementary as well. So all of those students, there's no need for them to worry about any payments. They just go to school and get free breakfast and free lunch. On our adult meals, we were able to maintain the price even though we've been hit with inflation for food cost and labor cost, but we're still making affordable for the adults that work at the schools. And an adult lunch is $5 and a breakfast is $3. And with that, they can get a fruit, a vegetable, a grain, protein, and milk for lunch. And for breakfast, they can get 3 items, which is a fruit and 2 items for that price. Still, I think you cannot get that deal anywhere else if you go get breakfast and lunch. One of the things we have seen though lately is an increase in our school meals program debt, which means that at the end of the year, we're seeing less and less people paying their bill. And last year, we closed on 23-24, we closed the year with $156,000 in debt, of which we were able to recuperate a little bit through collections and through also the weekly phone calls that go out reminding parents to pay for the debt. This year, as of June, we had $200,000, a little over $200,000 in debt. So it did go up, and with that, you can see there that about 30,000 is from inactive students who are no longer with Canyon School District, which is harder to recoup that money. after they've gone. However, we're very grateful for very kind donations that we get, private or from the Utah governor. We got about $12,000 worth of donations that people from the community decided to step up and say, hey, I want to donate to the local school district to pay for that debt. And this last week, Governor Cox put out a grant for families who qualify for free and reduced to pay for that debt. So we're not gonna be able to apply for the whole amount, of course, but for our free and reduced students that have debt, which is about $34,000, we are applying for the grant and hoping to get the money so we can cover that debt as well. Now, even though we have debt, our department has been very fiscally responsible on how we monitor food cost and labor cost, because our whole purpose is to break even or even make a profit so we can have good running operations in our department. One of the federal rules we have, though, is that for our fund balance, we are only allowed to carry over a 3-month operational balance in our account. For Canyon School District, that's about being generous. It's about 1.5 million per month. It's actually less than that, but that's how we calculate it. And based on that calculation, we currently have about 7.5 months worth of money sitting in our account, which is a good thing. The catch-22 for this is that the state potentially could have the extra money and request it back so they can help programs in the state that are hurting and are not doing so well. We don't want that, not that we don't like sharing, but we want to invest that money into our programs and into our community. So we're going to have to start writing a plan to show the USBE what are we doing with that money and how often we can spend it. And some ideas, I mean, the plan is not final. We could, for a period of time, say we're going to pay the cost for the reduced students so they can eat for free during a period of time, so we can benefit them. Of course, we always look for ways to improve our services and our meals, like quality. We have a lot of full muscle that we have introduced, proteins, but we can even go farther and extend that to elementaries if needed, because we have the funds now to do it. We also look at renovating equipment in our kitchens. And I'm actually very grateful, and thank you, board, because since the creation of Canyons, I think I go to our schools and all of the kitchens are dated, renovated, whether they're new buildings or renovations in the building. So thank you for that. But we're still looking if there is any large equipment that we can buy and improve, we're going to do that too. And of course, we are going to look at improving labor conditions too, if possible. We're going to look at maybe wages, benefits, uniforms, what else we can do for our employees. Those are the only areas that we're actually allowed to use that money, because it's tied USDA money to our programs. Only spend it on food, labor, or equipment. And of course, everything else that is operational that we do, like indirect costs and everything else. But it's a good problem to have, but now we need to figure it out how to spend all this money. Why is this important? Because this year we have also an administrative review, which is when the state comes in representing the federal government, and they're going to look under the microscope all of our programs and how we run it, and if we are actually complying with all of the regulations. So the areas that are going to be looking at is meal access and reimbursement, which what that means is, are we being following all of the protocol for free and reduced and allowing students to get on time at the lunch service, at the breakfast service, or not penalizing them, saying, hey, you were bad today in the classroom, you don't get to go to lunch. All of those, they're going to look at all that and make sure that everybody has access for that. They're also going to look at our counting and claiming, making sure that we are having a software that is accurate and that our accounts are at the end of the day matching our production, and that we're not overclaiming meals with the state. They're going to look at our meal pattern and nutritional quality. So they're going to look at meal components and all of the nutrition that we have to comply with. I won't bore you with the details, but literally it means like even the percentage of calories that come from fat, from protein, from sugars, everything. They're going to look at all that, making sure that we are in compliance with that. They're going to look at resource management, meaning how are we spending the money? What are we doing with our money? And are we submitting claims on time? Are all of our purchases in compliance with the procurement rules and everything we have to do? And general areas, they're gonna look at civil rights. Our training due to our people were mandated to keep continued professional education for all of my employees, including myself, a year. We have to do that and to make sure that we're up to date with the latest practice for food service. And they're gonna look at all of the other federal programs that we run, Smart Snacks, Summer Meal, which they did, fresh fruits and vegetables, everything that I mentioned. So big part of this is gonna be our free and reduced applications. They're gonna look for errors if there are any, and hopefully there won't be. Our verification program too, once a year, we actually are mandated to verify a handful of applications, making sure that people, whatever they wrote down on the application is true, and they have to validate that with pay stubs or documentation. And I think I went through all of this as I explained to you what I'm gonna look at, so. And in addition to that review, we're also having a procurement review, which means that they're gonna look at all of our purchases from last year. And we want to ensure that we meet all of the federal procurement, the state procurement, and that we are following all of those guidelines. So they're gonna really look at the microscope for everything that we've done in the last year, a school year plus this year, to see that we are in compliance. Now, this is not our first review. I don't even know how many we've had at this point, but we've always been successful, so I'm anticipating that it'll go well. The review date is in March 8th to the 20th. So we'll let you know early on how it went. That's kind of like the overview. I kind of went fast, but we're behind. So do you have any questions?
Do you have any questions?
To have the circle.
Nancy, go ahead.
This one of my favorite reports every year. It reminds me how many people are doing such good work that makes a difference every day in the lives of children in our community. I just really appreciate your leadership and your whole team and everything that you do for these children and in the buildings, and it's just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to serve the students and look forward to do more things.
I was thinking that's pretty remarkable that you have that much reserve left. And neat that you're able to look at how to improve facilities, because that is one thing I know we have such a wide range of ages of the buildings and the facilities that you are, working out of. And I think I'm thinking it was Nancy, I don't know, a few years ago. I just remember, I think it was you that was saying the amount of food that these facilities put out every day for these kids is remarkable. And the level of organization for that. And so thank you. And school lunch is not what it was when I was growing up, and I'm so grateful. It's not. Thank you for your
We're noticing that, yeah. Honestly, that's the biggest misconception that we fight every day. We get the phone call, well, it's a school lunch. You've been to the lunchroom lately. We invite you over, have it come.
As I like to say, you charge $2 for lunch. You go where you're gonna find that type of meal for $2 anywhere.
That's for sure.
And the credits to Sebastian and his people.
Just want to say,
They do a phenomenal job, and he's under his leadership. He's been with us since day.
super
So,
good. I actually went to the cafeteria the other day and had lunch, and your pictures are not faking. Yeah. At first you had really good photography, but I saw it firsthand. It was great.
I mean, not to brag, but today I went to a training with the state, and actually I was sitting with a table full of directors, and they started commenting how they go to Canyon's website to look at our menus to get ideas on how to do things.
Yeah.
Like if Canyon's does it this way, let's just follow.
Just-
So that was really a true testament to our
Good.
planner, our dietitian, and all of my team, that they do a fantastic job.
Well, I have to say from my personal experience of struggling sometimes just to figure out what to put on the table for the mouths of my family, like this blows my mind. So kudos and hats off to you. Thank you. Sebastian.
Anything that we can do?
One other thing I was gonna mention, I've noticed your options have grown too. Cause I have one son that really likes school lunch and it's really nice because now lots of times you have three choices. You know, it used to just be two. And I looked today, you had four choices at our kids' elementary school. So that's amazing too, to have so much variety and option for the kids. So that's really nice.
Honestly, our population is changing too. I mean, kids used to want chicken nuggets. Now they're asking for orange chicken. chili waffles. My daughter, when she was in first grade, asked me for sushi. I'm like, I don't know if we're ready for that. But you know, I mean, the palate's grown too, so we're out to give them many options. One thing I will mention this year, we introduced peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at elementary schools. And we are working very closely with the nurses team to make sure that our students are safe. And I'm happy to report that since we started, we've had no one with an allergic reaction. My staff is really monitoring, making sure there is no cross contact. But to get rid of that soy butter sandwich that was really low quality and switch to the PB&Js, students are loving it.
good.
So
Is that in every school?
in every,
Yes.
it's always been in secondary schools, but now it's in every
Every
school,
elementary.
every elementary.
Yeah.
And doing really well so far, so.
Well, thank you again so much for your presentation, and it looks like we're done with our study session. We will resume the business meeting at 7 p.m.
Now your kids are gonna report choice.
No.
I can't remember.
No. They
I
can
have
take
told
the
my
other
kids a
choices.
long
if
time
that's
ago,
what they
I'm not a short order cook. Well, the famous phrase is, that's all there is to a perfect.
That's it, yeah.
Thank you, Early.
I always, there's two.
There's nothing like hunger to get you really interested in trying new things, right?
It was so.
Well, that's one thing I like about our lunches is that
We'd like to welcome you all to the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is September 17th, 2024. We are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. I'd like to excuse board members Andrew Edel and Amber Schill, who are not with us this evening. And the first item to approve is the agenda for tonight, September 17th, 2024. If I can have a motion to approve the agenda, that would be great.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for the Canyons Board of Education meeting tonight on September 17th.
Can I get a second to that motion?
I will second the motion.
Okay, any discussion to that motion? Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay, we will now be led in the Pledge of Allegiance from Principal of Lone Peak Elementary, Shad DeMille. After which he will provide some school highlights with us.
Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so I can speak in this. As introduced, I'm Shad DeMille. I'm principal at Lone Peak Elementary School. And this is my first year there. And it's been a great first couple months for me, getting to know the kids and the faculty. And one of the things I've noticed right away about Lone Peak is just how tight-knit the teachers and staff are and how much they love the kids and really want the kids to succeed. And being new, I honestly wasn't sure what to share. So I reached out to teachers and staff and parents a little bit about Lone Peak. And so, as you probably know, Lone Peak was built in 1985. And since the dual immersion program was implemented in Canyons districts, students at Lone Peak have had that opportunity to learn Mandarin, Chinese. And being there, I like to talk to kids, and I've talked to several of them about how they're enjoying the Chinese program, and it's all been positive. The kids love it. They love the culture that they learn about in that program as well. And as you probably know, it's located at the base of the Wasatch Mountain, which I don't think you can get a better majestic view of us having that as a background for a school. There's several hiking trails nearby and within the boundaries, which I think is awesome for the community. And Lone Peak is unique in that students live in both Sandy and Draper City. And we feed into the two middle schools, Indian Hills and Draper Park, and the two high schools are Alta High School and Corner Canyon. Now, Lone Peak, there's a very active PTA and a volunteer community there who work together to make a lot of fun activities for the kids. And I've had the opportunity to work with the PTA so far for the last couple of months, and they've been great. Great group of people that are interested in their kids and want to do what's best to help them. Some of the activities that they do each year, and I'm learning these activities and I'm looking forward to them, are the fun run, Halloween parade, Chinese New Year, which is kind of part of the culture now with the Chinese immersion program. Battle of the Books, they do a 5th grade egg drop, carnival, and there's quite a few students that are part of the orchestra there, which I think is amazing. At Lone Peak, we have 5 brain boosters that our students get to participate in, and it's art, library, playworks, STEAM, and theater. And one of the things I've noticed there is how much our brain booster teachers collaborate with the classroom teachers, and they work really hard to integrate into those times the subjects that are in the classroom so that they can reinforce what the kids are learning. And the cool thing about what they do is there's a culminating activity at the end of the year that they do with all the skills and projects that the kids have done, and they have an art night that parents and teachers or students in the community come to, and I had the opportunity to attend that last year. They invited me before I came, and it's pretty amazing to see the work that the kids have put in and just the skills that teachers have to help get the kids to make those awesome projects. So that's a little bit about Lone Peak, and my last comment is that Lone Peak Eagles are always safe, kind, and responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal DeMille, and please give our best regards back to the Lone Peak community. That is, Lone
Lone Peak is one of the schools in my area, and I have really come to love and appreciate that community that has some incredible strengths and such an involved group of parents and teachers that are really committed to giving those kids the best experience. So please tell them thank you. Okay, we are going to now turn over to the recognitions portion of the evening, and we'll turn that over to Jeff and Kirsten. Thank you.
Looks like Mr. DeMille stepped out, but Lone Peak is about 2 blocks away from my house. And our neighborhood is incredibly proud of Lone Peak Elementary School. So it's good to see Mr. DeMille there. He was my son Jaden's first principal at Midvale Elementary School way back when. So thank you, Mr. DeMille, for that enlightening report about Lone Peak Eagles. It's a fantastic place. If you haven't visited Lone Peak, please do so. So thank you, Vice President Oakes, for the time to recognize those who make canyons strong. Those who are mentioned tonight will receive a letter of appreciation and perhaps some CSD swag from the board and the superintendent. Others may receive some notes of appreciation from the board. We like to extend those thanks to the people who help make us canyon strong. Now, perhaps nothing makes us even more canyon strong than the district's focus on the founding principles of the United States. And today, all across canyons, students focused on we the people. Today, there were countless learning activities and events to mark Constitution Day. This is a day set aside to learn about one of the most famous documents in history. It was made official on September 17th, 1787. Our Constitution is now the oldest standing constitution in history and the foundation that the United States is built on. We celebrate the Constitution and all it stands for. You can see a few of the photos of some of the activities that our schools did today. I want to draw your attention to the photo on the bottom right, my right. That is an Alta High Choir, and today they performed at a U.S. naturalization ceremony. They sang for 120 new U.S. citizens from 39 countries. And Alta students Valeria Villegas Soriano and Journey Garcia gave speeches of their own compelling personal stories of why this day, Constitution Day, means so much to them. Through song and word, at this obviously emotional ceremony for so many people, our students truly shined a light on what it means to be an American. For Constitution Day, CSD TV created a video for schools to use during their activities. The homepage of the district's website featured patriotic images, including our students reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. We're proud to do every single day. And the Instructional Supports Department put together a roster of recommended and optional resources for schools to use in their Constitutional Day and Founders Month events. All of those can be found on our website if you'd like to take a look at them. This is one way that we set aside time to make sure that our students are learning about how we honor our country, liberty, and the rights that we hold dear. But Constitution Day seemed to be set up this year by the work of our students on September 11th. You can see here many of our students that marked the day of service by helping Sandy City set up its healing-filled memorial. You can see there the student athletes helping set up that very moving display of the American flags that were right next to Sandy City Hall. Canyon students also won awards in a patriotic essay contest sponsored by Sandy City and the Canyon School District. Portions of the winning essays will be displayed as part of this Freedom Memorial. And this memorial stands for those who paid the ultimate price for fighting in defense of America's freedoms. The theme of the essay was what freedom means to me. And the winners reflected on the true meaning of liberty, the value of a soldier's service, and the importance of protecting our rights as guaranteed in the Constitution. The winners are Oscar Hui from Sunrise Elementary, Cosette Lennox from Altera Elementary, Degan Cowley from Indian Hills, Aaron Gunderson from Park Lane, Adita Mole, Hillcrest High School, and Eleanor Longaker from Albion Middle School. So congratulations to the students who won the essay contest co-sponsored by Canyons District and Sandy City. Little bits of that are on the display, and you can see there the members of the Board of Education and the administration who attended the ceremony to recognize the winners of that essay contest. If you have been to some of our sporting competitions and you've seen some very young looking sports broadcasters, go ahead and look twice. Now, your eyes are not deceiving you. They are crews from CSD TV, our broadcast station and streaming platform that not only shows the world the amazing things that are happening in Canyon School District, but gives students a pathway to learning the ins and outs of the video and broadcasting industry. Now, here's a picture of them at one of our first football games that we broadcasted earlier this year. It was at Brighton High School. They worked the cameras and they gave color commentary of the live stream of the game. And in some of the games, we had hundreds of people watching these live streams. And this, we've heard, is fantastic for grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles from around the country who can't travel to Utah to watch the football games, but want to tune in to see the action. That right there are the crew that did the Brighton High game a few weeks ago. We invite the board to attend an orientation of CSD TV. It's tomorrow, right here at the district office. It starts at 7 o'clock, where our team will give an orientation to the new crew and welcome them aboard for a year of fun broadcasting the events in the Canyon School District. Canyon Strong, we see it at Entrada High School. So the Governor Cox this week declared it Utah Education and Family Literacy Week. So that's an adult education week. The focus is on how adult education programs truly help people as they seek additional opportunities. Adults come back to school after leaving for a while because they truly want their high school diploma. We have a fantastic program in Entrada. You can see here the graduation ceremony from last year, and we want to thank the administrators of Entrada, Amy Betker and Mark Mattia. And the aim of the program and of this week is to increase program visibility with stakeholders. Now, students from all walks of life are at Entrada, and we are so proud of them when they walk across the graduation stage. So thank you to faculty and staff at Entrada for this week's Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. And this is for a good cause. So this Thursday is a first for the Canyon School District. It's the day we hold the first ever Mont L. Millerberg Classic. It's our annual golf tournament that is organized by the Canyons Education Foundation. And as you can tell, it's named after our good friend and Chris's husband, Mont Millerberg, who was a staunch supporter of not just Canyon School District, but the Education Foundation, and the golf tournament was one of his favorite events of the year. I had to dig pretty deep in our archives, Chris, but that picture of him putting is at the very first Canyons Education Foundation golf tournament in 2010. I'll get you that later if you want it. But this was a very special event for Mont, but Mont also was very proud of the foundation and the fact that we raise money through the golf tournament that goes directly back into classrooms in the form of innovation grants. So soon, our students will participate in a lot of learning activities thanks to the funding that they get from the foundation, which raises the money through the golf tournament. So we want to thank Hogan and Hughes Construction. They are the major sponsors of this year's event. Like I said, it's the first ever Mont L. Millerberg Classic, named after our good friend Mont. Generations will come and generations will feel the benefits of the funds raised at Mont's beloved golf tournament. Thank you, Chris. Thank you to your family. Vice President Oakes, we thank you for this time. We turn the time back to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the overview of so many amazing things happening in the district. Okay, we have come to the patron comment portion of the meeting. The Board of Education encourages public engagement and values input from our students, parents, employees, and other patrons of the district. Let me briefly review the guidelines for public comment. Public comment time is limited to residents and current employees of the district, except with prior approval of board leadership. Patrons or current employees wishing to provide public comment are asked to write their names on the provided sign-up sheet within the first 15 minutes of the meeting. Participants must note the agenda item or topic they wish to address or whether they represent a group. When several people share the same opinion, the board asks individuals to select a representative spokesperson. Speakers must indicate whether they hold or are seeking an elected or appointed position. And patrons may provide board members with written documents pertaining to their comments. These documents must be submitted to the board secretary over here. Time allotted for individual public comment is at the discretion of the board, but tonight individuals will receive 3 minutes and groups receive 5. Patrons may address the board on the same issue once in a 3-month period. The Board of Education does not engage in public comment on personnel issues of a district employee's character, professional competence, or mental or physical health. If a member of the public wants to comment on personnel issues, the board would request that those comments be submitted to the board in writing. However, if the member of the public determines to verbally comment on personnel issues, his or her comments need to be civil and refrain from personal attacks, insults, defamatory, or slanderous comments about an individual. Comments must be age appropriate, considering children who may be present or viewing online. Okay, so we have 4 individuals / groups that have signed up to speak to us this evening. The first is a representative group of CEA, which I believe is the CEA Executive Board. Next will be Sean Malmstrom. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, and please correct me. And after that will be Jason Maldonado, and we'll go to that point.
Hi, Vice President Oaks, members of the board, Dr. Robbins left, Leon. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you guys for everything that you do. All the hard work you put in to support our district and our educators and of course our students. I wanted to introduce you tonight to another group of amazing educators that also put in a lot of extra time, voluntary time to support our district and our educators and our students and their success. So this is our elected 2024-25 executive board, and they're going to introduce themselves and then let you know what they specialize in and represent. We also left with Cindy a directory with our contact information on the back. All right, I'll start.
Hi, Rebecca Allen. I actually teach 6th grade science now at Albion Middle School. I am the middle school executive board representative, and I also serve on negotiations and a few other committees around the district. Thanks so much for your time.
Hi, I'm Julie Bean. I am the special programs representative on the executive board. I am a special education teacher teaching the ACC program at Jordan High School. I'm also on the negotiations team and okay, so I do some PAC work as well off to the side, but thank you for all you've done to support us, and we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie, excuse me, I'm Katie Wilkinson. I'm the high school executive board representative. I teach at Alta High School. I do 9th and 11th grade English. And this is my first year here, so I'm kind of new. Don't know what I'm doing.
I'm Anna Peyton Bruno. I am the elementary rep, and I teach 4th grade over at East Smithville Elementary. And this past year, I was on negotiations also.
And I'm Kathy Smith. I am the vice president on the executive board. It's my 2nd year as vice president. I also serve as the board director fourth year board director for Utah Education Association. And I'm on negotiations as well.
Have one executive board member that was unable to attend tonight, and that is Samantha Majed, and she is, oh, Maudie, excuse me, I said that wrong, Samantha Maudie, and she is fifth grade at Quail Hollow Elementary. And she's got how many in her class this year? 36. Yeah, she's high up there, so we're hoping she would be here tonight, but she is not. I'm sure you'll hear from her. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Okay. Next we have Sean Malmstrom. After Sean will be Jason Maldonado, and after that, Michael Helm.
My name's Sean Malmstrom, born and raised in Sandy, Utah, 47 years old. I've got older daughter that graduated from Jordan High School, son that graduated from Jordan High School, and a sophomore that has been removed 3 weeks from now. Just wondering what Canes and the district is doing about the safety concerns in our school in regards to the recent tragic event. So that's my question.
So during patron comments, it's not customary for the board to go back and forth. We are hearing you and we are taking notes, but if there's anything else you would like to share with us.
Just wanted to get the ball rolling as far as what next steps and communication out of the community, the school, the parents, everything else. We haven't heard or seen or nothing since it's happened. It's a
Okay.
little concerning.
All right. Thank you for coming. Okay, next we have Jason Maldonado, after which Michael Helm will come.
Hello, I'm Jason Maldonado. Me and my family have been part of this community for the last 12 years. I am the father of Kane Hamilton. He lost his life August 23rd. I guess my thing is, since 7th grade, my son has had problems with bullying in Mount Jordan. And it just seemed like no matter what paperwork we filled out, it was easier for them to get rid of the one single kid rather than attacking the problem. You know, I am here so we can try to do something for this doesn't happen again to anybody. My house is upside down. And the ball, I believe, has been dropped. And I'm not going to point fingers. That's not what I'm trying to do. I want to fix a problem. My son was jumped last year at Jordan High School by one of the same individuals that had been bullying him since the 7th grade at Mount Jordan. And we actually had to remove my son 2 times from school because the problem was so hard. We put him back into high school over here because he's a baseball player. Very well known in the baseball community up and down the valley. He's an honor roll student. We're very proud of that. My son was always taught to, I taught him to not be a follower, to help others. People that were getting bullied. So that's what he stood on. He was never scared of gang members, and that's what got him in trouble. He was jumped outside of Jordan. And the reason why I'm here is because nothing was done. There was no suspension. I brought it to the attention. And who do you hold it? You know, I'm not trying to point fingers, but who do you hold accountable, right? Because at the time, it was just, oh, it was a jump, but now my son is actually not here anymore. we have to have some different way to deal with gangs and bullying. I mean, it's not a problem till it happens to your kid or somebody that's related to you, really, right? We made statements on the situation. And the next day it happened again at the high school. The exactness. So there's a lot of anger with me. I'm extremely frustrated. If we can, I've never been to one of these things. I'm not a talker. I don't know how to talk. So I'm just coming as a concerned father. And I'm heartbroken because I'll never be able to talk to my son again. And I believe we could have done something last year when they jumped him. We could have got rid of those kids out of the system, especially if we were to look back at one of those kids was always involved in the situation. So I'm just gonna go ahead and leave that. I'm sure none of you even knew about this, so that's why I wanted to show up to make you aware that we've filled out the paperwork, we've filled out the forms, and nothing has happened. And if you've ever been bullied, I promise you, the last thing you want to hear is your son say, "Dad, I don't know why they don't like me. What's wrong?" I was like, "Man, because you're not scared of them, son. They're a gang and you're not scared of them. You're not giving in to them. And they want you to fear them." So I'd just like to leave that with you. And hopefully you guys can talk about it. We can come up with a new plan because this plan is not working. It's just not working. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for coming in to speak to us, Mr. Maldonado. We're so sorry about your loss. Okay, next we have Michael Helm.
That's heavy stuff. I will shut your gun first. In comparison, mine's a very insignificant thing, I feel. But this is my daughter, Ruby. I'd like to thank the board for listening to us today. I have had a former student at Indian Hills Middle School. Ruby is a current student there as well in the music program, which I wanted to talk about today. Indian Hills has a very healthy music program. I've heard that they enroll more students in their music program and have the smallest music room in the district. They lack the space and it creates a challenging environment for students. They sit so close together. Ruby gets hit by other bows just about every day while she's playing in the orchestra. Of course, she chose to play the bass, and that's not a very small instrument, but she's also in band and chose to play the bassoon, which is not a small instrument either. But it still is a problem because there's not enough room for all the students in the room. The amount of space is one concern, but also the ceiling height seems like it's a concern as well. I went to one of her performances beforehand, tried to help her tune her bass, and the various students were all over the room trying to tune, practice, and play. I had to put my ear right next to her mouth just to try to hear what she was saying. We ended up going into the hallway to help tune her instrument. And I feel like the ceiling plus the room space just doesn't create a good learning environment. Through the grapevine, whether it's a rumor or I'd like to start a rumor of the talk of a renovation of the band room at Indian Hills. I'd like the board to consider that or talk about it at least. It would be welcome and wonderful news, and I'd appreciate any consideration into that. I'm surprised the music room these issues weren't resolved when it went through its reconstruction in 2018. I don't know if it was due to budget or what, but it seems like it was lacking when that was done in the last time. Music is great for students, and I want my daughter here and other future students to be able to thrive and flourish. So these
abilities can be lifelong pursuits and not just something that they do in school. And band isn't just something to get through the day, but rather a class that they can go to and enjoy. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for joining your dad, Ruby. Happy to see you. All right, so we like to thank all of our patrons who came to speak with us. We really appreciate public engagement and involvement. We are now done with patron comments and would like to move on to the consent agenda. I'd like to ask for a motion regarding the consent agenda, and please read the items individually.
I move to approve the consent agenda. A, approval of minutes for September 3rd, 2024. B, approval of hire and termination reports. C, approval of student overnight travel. D, approval of purchasing bids. E, approval of August financial reports. F, policy update, new policy 500.23, which is extracurricular activities and student participation. And G, legislative update pursuant to USBE R277-628, sensitive materials, and policy 600.06, selection and reconsideration of school library materials.
Okay, can I get a second from anyone?
I will second that motion.
Is there any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the motion passes. Okay, so next we have the new business portion of the evening, and we are beginning with the strategic plan focus group report for access and opportunity. Paula Logan, our director of federal and state programs, will present.
Well, all right. So first I wanted to just thank everybody who was on our committee. This is our slide that shows that, just for their time and input to create guidance for our schools within the strategic plan that you as a board have developed. We have some really good discussions about what's best for kids, and we're really striving to create some good things. With access and opportunity, we have 2 strategic initiatives that are listed up there, 7 success criteria. And in our last meeting, we talked a little bit about this and the wording and some of the things that are going on. And one of the things that kept coming up was just that idea about trying to reach out and build bridges for all students. We had multiple people on the committee that was where we were concerned, is that all students were getting that kind of support, access and information for parents, building out supports for traditionally underserved students, and balancing those access issues with opportunities as well. So to start, we kind of wanted to go over just with our traditionally underserved populations. We have several federal programs and federal and state grants that address some of that. And so we shared with the board the annual report, and Nancy had asked to kind of hit a few items. So I'm going to go through these slides. There's a ton of information on them, but it's in the report that I gave you. So I'm just going to hit some highlights and kind of go through those. One of the things that we're just really proud of is the number of students. If you look on this first page, we do highlight how many students are served in those various areas. And our goal is to really make a difference. In last year's efforts, our newcomer students, our multilingual students, and our students experiencing homelessness came up quite often with some different things that we had to address. And so that's kind of throughout this. We do have a really strong Title I program in our district. We have 5 elementary schools in that. They have very specific programming. We've got some community school support in there. We've got extended learning, family learning centers, preschool, additional staffing. And those kinds of things are really to address some of that access for some of our underserved populations. And as we go through this, most of this applies to our Title I schools and specifically in our Hillcrest feeder, but we do push that out. So first we have McKinney-Vento students. These are students who are experiencing homelessness, and that is just any student who lacks a fixed and regular and adequate nighttime residence. So last year we had, if you look on this sheet, 2,515 students that we worked with over the course of the year. I put our current numbers on this slide as well. That's not in the report because the report's last year's. But currently we have 1,200. We did hire a second McKinney-Vento liaison, so we have 2 that are working with these students. And in our road home right now, which is now the Connie Crosby Family Resource Center, we have 122 students. And last year, throughout the course of the year, we had 325 who went through that. But one of the things that I'm really proud about is the outreach that our committees and our people working with our McKinney-Vento students have done, and that includes our teachers and our schools. The graduation rate for that group last year was 84.97. And so for students facing so many barriers, the supports and structure that our schools have given them, I feel is really paying off. Also, I just wanted to list kind of the different things that happen. So with McKinney-Vento, our students experiencing homelessness, we have a variety of living arrangements. And so we track those. And so you have students who are doubled up because of financial hardships, people living in hotels or motels, people in the shelters. We have people last year, we did not have enough room in the shelters in our district. We had people living on the streets or in places not designed for sleeping, places without adequate facilities. And we do have a group of unaccompanied youth, meaning they come to register and they have no parents or representation. So because of that, our superintendent a couple of years back worked with Wendy and they started to apply for the Teen Center grants. We have received 4 grants for Diamond Ridge, Hillcrest, Jordan, and Brighton. And so that kind of tells you what stages we're in. We have not received grants for the other 2 schools and they haven't opened that up again to this point. But we wanted to point out that all of our high schools do have food pantries and clothing options for kids, and we get services out to all of those students. With our, let's see what else we're going. With our Hillcrest feeder, we do have community schools. So we have a facilitator that works directly with the school and the school's BLT, building leadership team, to make sure we're meeting the needs that they see in their communities. So we have 8 facilitators. This year we added Mid-Valley. And they work very closely with the foundation and the resource closet to make sure that we have supplies and that those teen centers have supplies so that we are meeting those school needs. I skipped a slide somehow, but we also have extended learning programs in our Title I schools. So they have before and after school programs, again, to help our students who maybe have less access to develop their academics a little bit more strongly. And last year we had around 500 students participate in either the before and after school program or the summer school program from our extended learning. We also work with, oops, I skipped the slide, our Native American or Title IX students. And with them as well, we do a lot of mentoring and working with them. And again, our graduation rate for this group, maybe I didn't put it on there, but our graduation rate, we had 15 students last year and all 15 of them were able to graduate. So we meet with the tribal council, make sure that the plans with our federal monies and our state monies, the tribes agree with, and they've been very pleased with both the mentoring and the tutoring that we're doing in elementary schools. With our multilingual supports, this was a hot ticket item last year. We were trying to get a lot of things in place. And I think we did get a lot of things in place. So last year we had 62 languages and I've listed our top 5. This year we're at 68 languages and those top 5 are still the same. Last year we had 971 newcomers, so they were new to American schools last year. Right now we have 442 and over half of those actually are kindergarten students. So we're trying to get some supports out. One of the things that I think we did really well is we did some training for our McKinney-Vento and ML assistants before school started, and then paid them to do some extra hours that week before school started and the first week of school. And in talking specifically with our Title I schools, that was a great support and really helpful as they were able to get more kids registered, and it wasn't as heavy a burden to try and get some translation. We also pushed out 2 sets of earbuds to each school. We did that this year. We got them purchased last year, but they're pushed out this year, just recently. And we got all the schools with an iPad and trained them on Microsoft Translate. And as I've gone around, specifically our Title I schools and several of the other schools, the offices have said, we've used this. It's been super helpful. Thank you. So we really appreciate the committee and their help with that. We also, trying to get all this in, we did, I think I showed you this last year, but we have a newcomer dashboard. So our secretaries, our office people, our schools can go to one place and find all of those supports that they need. And I've again had some really good feedback that they really appreciate that. And then we have Latinos in Action is one of the programs we oversee. That's a tremendous program, which also has a great graduation rate. We had 65 seniors last year and they all graduated. But the real power of this, and I saw it when I worked at Midvale Middle, was having our students go in and work with the elementaries and do some tutoring and develop this belief in their own self-efficacy. I can make a difference. And so you've got leadership and this ability to serve and help in my community going with the high school students. And then we have these younger students who are getting experience and reading help and support from a high school student. And it's a pretty awesome program. And so we're really excited. We've got that in, what was that, 7? I should have counted that up. I think it's 7 or 8 schools. And some of them are running 2 classes, and that's really fantastic. So that's kind of historically. Last year in May, so I didn't feel like we needed to go over this in great detail again. We went over kind of the things that Access and Opportunity had focused on. So you may remember this sheet on both of our strategic areas, but our big rocks that we hit, we did PD for our multilingual learners for teachers. So we really worked hard with our secondary teachers in social studies, math, and science. And this year we're doing ELA, our administration, although it says ELA administration, so small typo there. And then our ISD coaches and specialists. So we're trying to get everyone up together with an understanding of how quality interactions really improve education for everybody, but specifically for our students, our ML and our special ed students actually, but it helps everybody. We did a lot with newcomer supports. I just showed you some of those resources, and then pushing out allocations to every school based on their needs. We sent those letters out last February, I believe. And so that's been really helpful to kind of see that through as those allocations came through this year. With special ed, we saw growth in unified sports and several exciting successes. Our Life Skills Academy was over at the old Crescent View building. And then the special ed department approved some additional days at the beginning of the year that were truly key in some of their professional development. Kind of by levels in elementary at the beginning of the year, we had some smaller groups that were subgroups that were working. So in our elementaries, we created a website link that had the programs and where people could go to get information on that. We had 2 elementary schools who actually took some teachers to QTEL training over the summer, and were able to learn some things that were great with, again, those quality interactions and how those are implemented. As a matter of fact, talking to Anya, maybe she left. She was one of the teachers that went, and she was telling me about some of the things she's trying in her classroom. For the middle school, we've been working on kind of an informational flyer. We started out with 2 pages. We're now at 4. So it's going to be maybe a booklet versus a flyer, but we really are looking to try and get that into kind of that 5th grade, maybe 4th grade even, to get parents more aware. We've had discussions, lots of discussions about extended opportunities and hands-on learning. Jessie Hennifer from ISD has done a couple different presentations on the number of programs and things that we're working on in those areas. And then our high schools, we have our teen centers going. We've also started with a little struggle with our government and the FAFSA deadlines and dates when it's coming out, but we're trying to create a more systematic approach to encouraging parents and students to complete that FAFSA application and support them in that, as well as develop and better access to understanding those CTEC pathways, which will feed into kind of our new innovation center or whatever we're going to call that. So that's where we've come. And then we've had one meeting this year, and this is kind of, I guess, where we're headed. With about a third of our committee being new, we kind of took a little breath and tried to realign and recenter ourselves on what our strategic plan is asking us to do, how we all perceive that, and then what our priorities are. So we did a little brainstorming activity, and we only got through success criteria 1, but the second one is a little shorter, or strategic initiative 1. We got through 5 of the success criteria in that. But we did a little brainstorming where we all kind of said, these are important things, and these are my top things. I've even got pictures of our sticky notes. So each member identified the 3 things that they felt was the most important. And there's a link on that slide that'll take you to our top 3. We still need to work through strategic initiative 2, but the goal is that once we got that we could discuss and then prioritize each of those and decide where each fits. Right now, we've got some overlapping things with some of our other committees. And so we talked about, like, we're going to own one, like when we get to that point, which ones we're going to own and which ones we're going to ask just for information back. Once we kind of get that laid out, which I'm hoping probably is in our next meeting, that we can prioritize and then create a timeline that this year, this is what we're working on, next year, this is what we're working on, and then create more action steps and things schools can more easily access and follow. So just kind of that idea of creating just that kind of a guiding document or overview that this is what we think should be happening, and then supporting schools and how they access that and how they can connect their plans to that. Then we had just kind of our wrap up at the end of our meeting. So we set our dates. We've got some agenda items and then some action items that we're working on and information that we're gathering. So then I had just an additional slide that just gave you our ML numbers right now and our WIDA numbers right now, because I thought that would be interesting to you. And we're just starting the screening process, so we'll see those numbers shift and change over the year. But that's why, that's just at the end, I don't know. There's a lot of information, but that's my report.
No, thank you so much, Paula. I really appreciate your presentation. Board members, do we have any questions?
Thank you. I don't really have a question because I'm on this committee, and I just want to thank you, Paula, for your leadership on the committee and for your vision and your organization. It's just really amazing to be on that committee. It's such a great experience because the room is full of people that are very focused on providing the access and the opportunities that Canyons can offer to the children in our schools. And we're not afraid of looking at difficult things and trying to figure out solutions and recommendations for moving forward. And so I just want to thank you and all of our committee for the great work that is happening. And I want to thank the board and just that this is an important piece of our strategic plan, because being a public education system, we cannot lose sight of our obligation and responsibility to have access and opportunity for all students.
Thanks, Nancy.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay,
Wow,
this was awesome.
thanks.
It's a reminder all over again about why public education really is crucial. And it's so crucial. I do have a question. So QTEL,
QTEL.
in education, we have a lot of acronyms.
Okay, quality,
Uh-huh.
quality teaching for English learners.
For English
I had to
learners.
think for a second, where were my letters? But
Awesome.
really what we're focusing on from that is the quality interactions. So ISD actually has a page in their book that talks about what quality interactions are. And we've kind of worked on that and tried to make that connection. So it's not just something new for our staffs, but something we can connect to and build to really help improve learning for everybody.
Right. I really appreciate this. I know that Ms. Nyberg has brought this up before, and I share a similar concern, and this is just feedback for the committee. I'd like to see more addressed about kids that need to be challenged, that need, like, there's so much in this presentation that's phenomenal, but that is just one area that I think that we could see more of. And part of where I'm coming from on that is when I started doing a deep dive as a parent, way before I ever got on the board, about our SALTA teachers and what kind of endorsements they had gotten for gifted and talented, or even understanding twice exceptional kids that have disabilities. I actually think the more we encourage gifted and talented endorsement or training, I think it will really benefit all of our students, including all multi-language learners, many of whom are so bright and actually really need to be challenged, or kids that have disabilities of one kind or another that do need that deeper dive. Personally, if it were up to me and I could wave a magic wand, I would love to see like a gifted and talented specialist in every school, especially our elementary schools, but certainly also in middle schools. Our kids need to be challenged, and bored kids are usually not very well behaved either. So there's a part of me that thinks it's in the best interest actually of everyone. So that's just my little piece of feedback as a singular board member. And anyway, but
Perfect. I'll take it to the.
this was awesome. Oh, and Ms. Nyberg.
Thank you, Mrs. Oaks, for bringing that up. Actually, I'm excited. I'm on the committee now. And if you look on that page of agenda items for October, November, actually middle school honors data is on there. So yes, and in the pictures that she had with the sticky notes, I believe one of those also, I was the red marker. So for sure, that is something that we are going to be talking about. So.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you click on that link, you'll see all of the things that we talked about. And they are grouped by years, but really I just grouped them how they appeared on the page. And as a committee, we're going to have to resort, but
Yeah,
that's where we start.
We're in the middle of that with high quality learning. So I have a hefty appreciation for the process you guys are going through. It is really tricky. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yes.
But the people on our committee, like you said, are great. And it was actually kind of fun to work through and talk about those things. Again, like Nancy said, back to all students and how we can really push that out.
It's great. And then Nancy, do you have anything? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we turn the time over to the board for a discussion about the proposed constitutional amendment A. Just by way of background, this came up in board leadership with the question of whether or not we should, as a board, take a particular position. There have been a lot of people in the district, both in faculty and patrons of the district, that have asked questions of us as board members about where our position is regarding the removal of the earmark, the education fund earmark. And Amber and Andrew and I thought it would be best for us to have a public discussion and talk about whether or not you guys would like to put out a letter, or if we take an official, I know our legislative committee kind of comes up with administration discussing legislative priorities. Is this something we want to clarify as a legislative priority? I'm just going to open it up to you guys. Tell me what you think. Okay,
So I'm going
Ms.
to
Milliberg.
share one of my favorite quotes. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. So I would say absolutely we should make a statement. That's what the public expects from us. We're the ones that are most involved in it. We're the ones that receive the information and end up with the accountability. So yes.
Okay, anyone else? Karen, go ahead.
I agree that we need to come up with a statement as a board
on our position, irregardless of what any other district or board may choose to do, on where we stand on this amendment, because I do know that our community is relying on us to lead them and to help them understand what's involved. And there have been many different reports starting to come out now about the goods and the bads of this particular issue. But I hate to rely on legislative promises. You know, they give a good talk, but they don't usually walk the walk. You know, they like, it seems that they believe in carrots and sticks. So the carrot is, we'll take off some of your food tax. It's not the entire food tax. It's only the state portion, and then you still have the federal part of it. And that's their carrot. And then the stick is that they want to take away the money that they have been required to give to education since the beginning of the state constitution. And they have never at this point given 100% of the money available to education. They do give a good chunk of it. We are the largest part of the budget. But I think it's so important that they understand that we're the largest part of the budget because we affect every single other community service that there is. If we can prevent problems down the road, you don't need prisons. We'll be able to help with the homeless. I mean, we can't solve the problems. They seem to think that giving us that responsibility without any funding is going to solve the problem. But if they could use the money more appropriately, instead of giving taxpayers back $25 for the year, because you didn't have to pay taxes on food or whatever the amount would be. I'm just making up a number. If they took even that much money and put it more towards education, what more we could do. But I am concerned that they have promised only two things, and then after that, it's kind of up to them. I prefer that they work with educators and come up with better ways of spending that educational budget and not keep funding their special projects. The people that are making the decisions aren't necessarily the people that understand the problem. So I feel like we really, truly need to make a statement of where we stand. I think that will help our community. I know PTA has researched it greatly and would appreciate, and they would more than happily support whatever, the positions that we may come up with if it matches theirs, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure I will. But anyway, I know. I'm pretty sure that we can come up with something that supports our students. We have to protect our students down the line in the future, not just now, not just the next few years, but we have to look way ahead. And I think that legislators are a little bit short-sighted, and I'm afraid they're taking away the one and only thing that education can count on so that they can do their pet projects. So yes, I think we need to make a statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate the thoughts that have been shared already, and I concur. I think it's fine for our board to make a statement. I think we need to be very cautious and careful about how that statement is promoted and used. Because again, being a public entity, we need to be wise about using these resources. But I will say, for my personal opinion, I concur with what has been said already. I've followed this process for many, many years that the legislature has done. And the legislature, and I do not doubt their desire, is a legitimate desire to obtain more flexibility in how they can appropriate the revenues that come into the state. And about 6 or so years ago, they really made a good faith effort to come up with a way of modifying the state tax structure. This was back when
sales tax was not bringing in the revenue that it, historically has as a share of the revenue available for the budget. And they made some proposals about shifting some of those, how the sales tax works, which funds all of the programs of the state, because income tax, as has been mentioned, is dedicated to the education of Utah at the time. That was to public ed and higher ed. And then there was so much pushback from those other industries that were now going to be subject to a sales tax that the legislature quickly kind of reversed on that proposal. And they were looking at, okay, how else can we solve our problem? And I believe right around that time, they instigated mandatory sales tax on online purchases, but they did not expand that to any of the services that they had talked about doing. And then they came up with the idea, well, let's see if we can fund fund some of the other state services that are related to education in the form of providing programs for children and for individuals with disabilities that could also be funded out of the income tax fund. They proposed a constitutional amendment. Everyone, when I say everyone, a lot of the industries and the groups, including the education people, felt like, okay, that's probably a good solution to this problem. And they said, this should take care of it for, what'd they say, 8 to 10 years, I think. 2 years later, they're back wanting a complete removal of the earmark. And because it didn't solve the problem the way they had forecasted that it would. And so that's just a really long kind of background for the thought that I wanted to share really is, why does this problem need to be solved on the back of public education? I feel like it's kind of the path of least resistance in some regards. And I feel like that the story is important for voters to know so that they can be more educated when they go, they mark their ballots and they go to that voting booth. They can be more educated about really what is this and more background, because if all you read is what's on your ballot, then it's only a very small part of the story.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for that background, actually. I am absolutely in favor of making a statement. I think as I think about this, I think we need to, it's our job also to draw awareness, right? And to educate the general public whenever our state is looking at amending our state constitution. That should be something that's examined by the general public. Why are we amending the state constitution? I look at it as, what can we do as a board to cross over to other school boards in the state and say, can we united as protectors of public ed come together and come up with a strategy of how to help educate the general public? And I know, there has been some awesome op-ed pieces and things like that about public education. I think when we look at Utah and the amazing Utah economy that's been recognized in Wall Street Journal and Forbes and so many different, very acclaimed nationally syndicated papers and magazines. I would submit that our economy, one of the reasons that makes Utah so amazing is, so far in the history of our state, public education has still been the first choice for most Utahns, regardless of their socioeconomic demographic. So I think putting out that message, drawing awareness to the fact of, do we know what this amendment is, what it's about? And are we, you know, how do we educate the general public about this? A statement, absolutely. And then just looking across to other school districts about how they can unite with us. It is our job to protect, right, the pathways that we can provide as public education entity. And so when we look at our funds and Nancy, I thought Nancy's history was excellent to show, hey, you know, this is a problem, and we've seen this trickle and what's going on here. And so I would love to do more than just a statement, but how can we be strategic about letting the general public understand what's being proposed here?
Okay, thank you. Right now we're 444. So I'd like to add to what's being said. There's a lot of thoughts I have on this subject. All of us in public ed know that Utah is currently ranked 51st in the country if you include the District of Columbia for per pupil spending. And the state that's right above us is Mississippi. And no bragging on Mississippi, but that's not exactly where we want to be. We don't want to be 51st. And a lot has been said by our legislators, some of whom say they take great pride in the fact that we spend so little and yet have such a great product, which in many ways is true that we have. But that has been on the backs of, there are certain supports or girders that have upheld that. One is absolutely parent involvement. This is a state that values families, that encourages parental involvement, and that has traditionally made a huge difference in our schools. Quality educators, and a lot of this has been done on their backs. Another one is absolutely the funding that we've received from the state, which has been important. And it has increased somewhat in the last few years, but part of that was kind of as a bribe for us to get behind the earmark removal. And the fourth is kind of what was shared with by Paula Logan this evening about the safety net that we're providing for students in need. What we're seeing is that infrastructure of public education over time is becoming weaker. Those girders that have upheld it, we are seeing decreases, significant decreases in public involvement or parental involvement. So, we're seeing teacher shortages and burnout rates and exhaustion. We are seeing funding that is not keeping up with inflation. Last year, Leanne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we had roughly over the last few years, 20% inflation. So when the legislature comes back and says, we're giving you a 3% inflationary adjustment, that's not super helpful. It's one of the reasons why we have to come back to the public and increase property taxes in order to keep the lights on. And as far as the safety net goes, as Ms. Logan shared this evening, our student needs are increasing exponentially. I had no idea we had over 200 brand new kindergartners coming in that are multi-language learners. That's significant. I don't know any other piece of infrastructure, whether it's sewers, whether it's freeways, whether it's even our communications network, that doesn't need to be revamped and taken care of in order to make sure it doesn't fall apart and impact everyone. Public education is absolutely, like what was mentioned earlier, is part of why the economy of this state has done as well as it has, and it is an investment. It has to continue to be prioritized in order for it to thrive. And if you look at some of the data that exists out there, the state of Utah is very unique. And one of the reasons I think that we do turn to our neighborhood schools, like Ms. Nybar talked about, is because of an equity piece. Because we have the WPU, which is the weighted pupil unit, and every school receives the same amount from the state for each student. And that there's other pieces too to make it extraordinarily fair, so that from county to county, from city to city, the kids going to public education, like these different schools, have more or less a very similar experience and quality. And when you look at our grade as a state, we get a solid A in equity, and that is very difficult to achieve. In fact, if you look at most states across the country, they don't come anywhere close. The other metric is funding effort. And they base that off of your GDP and how much percentage of your GDP actually goes towards education. In that area, we get a solid F. And I think that that's tragic. I don't think that should be what is happening. Now, in terms of putting out a statement, I feel very strongly that we should, in part because, as we have seen in the last week, as over the discussion about Amendment D and the decision that came down in the courts, we currently have legislative leadership that has taken it upon themselves for the first time to personally write the description of what will go on the ballot for readers to read about constitutional amendments. And if anyone paid attention to what they wrote about Amendment D, we should all be horrified, as the judge was this week. And I would say similarly, maybe not to the same extent, but Amendment A is also very misleading. And so I feel like we owe it to the public to make clear for them what will happen if they vote for this amendment. What is at stake? At the end of the day, they can choose. But I think clarity and accuracy of information is always important when it comes to transparency in government. And I feel like I owe it to my constituents to make that clear. I don't really make much on this. I lose money doing what I'm doing. Let's be honest. I'm an attorney. I can make a ton of money somewhere else, but I do this for my community. I don't do this for the money. What is at stake is significant. And if I don't say something, I can't live with that. And I feel like we should move forward. Obviously, we're going to need to get some guidance from our legal department about how to do that appropriately, but I'm in full favor. So does anyone else want to say anything? Okay. All right, so do we want to, does anyone want to make a motion? I don't know if we have to make a motion for
I
that.
just have a clarifying question. So what we're proposing to do is not just take a position, but to articulate information that would accompany that position. And I think, again, we have to be kind of careful about using district staff and resources on this. So I'm wondering if we could just, yes, we need to consult with our legal department, but if the bulk of that, maybe we initiate ourselves.
Sure, I think that's a good suggestion, Nancy. Anyone else? You agree? Okay. Yeah, Ms. Never.
So are we going to want to divide up, and have a few members draft a statement with additional information and then have the rest of us look at it? We can't meet all together unless it's an open meeting. So how would we like to do?
Except for the fact that we wouldn't be taking, I don't know, maybe we need Dan's advice on this, but we wouldn't be taking a policy position on anything. Right? And yeah, it doesn't involve the operations of the district at all.
Oh, I see. So we're going to meet separately. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so it sounds like we would like to proceed as a board in coming out with a statement about how regarding constitutional amendment A. And just as a side note, I did speak with both Andrew and Amber ahead of time because I knew that they wouldn't be here for this portion of the discussion, and they are also in full support. So, okay, that leaves us with the last bit of the agenda for tonight, which are staff comments, and we'll begin with the superintendent report and then business administrator report.
Thank you, Amanda. First, let me just express my condolences to Kian's family, and got a chance to talk to his dad a little bit out in the hall. It's hard to hear those kinds of things. And I think any student death weighs on us, but the circumstances here in particular are difficult. And also Mr. Maelstrom, appreciate his comments. I know that Jordan High and the Jordan community is doing all they can, but we can do more. And ultimately, that accountability and responsibility lies with me. And to his point, I hope we can put in place stronger supports. I don't know that any legislators listen tonight, but if this isn't a call to get back to compulsory education, I don't know what is. It should be the law that kids are in school until they graduate every day. No questions asked. And I think it also is a call to think about juvenile justice reform. I understand, how this all changed, and there's no need to discuss that again tonight, but I think it is a call to action for us to really relook at, what that looks like when it comes to students that may have violent pasts or felonies or different types of issues, and how they are reintegrated in school. And I don't take away from the reality that, minors and students and children all need education. But I think as a state, we really need to rethink our position. And I just, I mentioned to Mr. Maldonado that his comments tonight really made a difference. And I know that doesn't take away the pain from the death of a child, but I hope he knows that I heard, you heard, and we'll do better. So thank you.
Couple things, regarding the Amendment A, discussion. I did put on board docs a document from the Kim Gardner Policy Institute from the University of Utah. You may have already seen that. It was in the paper. You may, but I would encourage you to look at that. Some of the graphs of the decline in education funding over the years, and what percentage has now gone to higher ed out of the general fund. Out of the education fund, and less coming out of the general fund to fund higher ed. And some of the other alternatives that they have in place that they could use, they call them levers, rather than this ballot initiative, such as user fees, toll roads, looking at increasing sales tax on certain items. So there are other alternatives out there that they could look at as well. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't already, to read, and anybody in the public to read that article. Again, it's out there on our board docs. A couple other things quickly. Appreciate our transportation department. Every year, we do the special permit process for those kids who live outside a busing zone. Usually it's, middle schoolers in 7th grade, 8th grade, whose siblings are in 6th grade and live in that 1.5 mile range. We got 1,000 permits requests when we opened that up in July. We completed that and fulfilled about just under 800 of those requests. So we fulfilled about 78% we could accommodate with the request. The other 22% we had to put on either deny or put on a wait list. And then just to follow up on Rick's remarks, this is an unbelievable tragedy. The USBA has reached out to us and some other districts on doing an attendance audit on what we do for attendance and remediation. We have been supplying them their information over the last couple of weeks on what we do. I know other districts are involved, as are other charter schools. And so hopefully something comes of this that is substantial. And because this is just, again, our hearts go out to Mr. Maldonado and his family, an unbelievable tragedy that we cannot allow to happen again. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to board members' comments. Ms. Pedersen, can we start with you?
I'd like to echo the sentiments that have been expressed concerning the tragic death. We all feel the pain. And I echo that we need to make sure that more is done and that we've heard that message. So we appreciate those that have expressed that concern. I'd also like to compliment our schools on the various ways that they've been able to educate our students about the Constitution. That is the bedrock of our government. And I think there's a lot of adults that don't know or haven't paid any attention to what the Constitution really says. They know the word, but they don't really know what it is and how it works. And I think it's so important that we continue to support our schools to inform our students who can also help inform their families and community. I really enjoyed being able to go over and see the healing fields that Alta athletes were able to help set up. It is still breathtaking to see how many flags are out there. And I remember that day. It was a hard day. In fact, it was a hard next couple of years. I hated looking at the flag and thinking about that every single year. It was just very difficult. Students would look at us and say, "Why are you crying?" Because it was hard. But I think it's important that we remember those kinds of things. So I was appreciative that I was able to go over to listen to excerpts of the essays that were winning essays for the monument that Sandy City has set up, and that they will be continuing to do each year. And I'm hoping that we can see more of our students represented. See if we can get a good variety of our schools to participate in that competition and see if we can get their names on the plaque. I also have enjoyed going around and seeing some of the fundraising fun activities that the PTA has been up to. I spent today over at Altaview. They were supposed to have the Roadrunner Dash. We were supposed to run, but if you remember, there was a lot of rain and thunder and lightning. So being the smart school that they are, they pivoted literally overnight, or probably that morning. And we had a dance party instead. And it was just as successful and super fun. The kids loved it. And I really enjoyed being able to feel that energy. In fact, I came out tired. I thought, oh, it's like I taught school today. Just all that constant energy and being around them. But I so enjoyed being there. And then later I went back for their SEC meeting, and I'm impressed with the quality of the people who are engaged in our schools and want to be there for our kids. And not just their own kids, but kids, any and every one of them. They want to hug them and take them home and make sure everything is going well for them. So I appreciate how much we do for our students. And I am proud to say I'm a member of Canyons District, because I know that we are looked up to by many of them in the Valley with envy at times. But I am happy that we are doing the best we can, and that I know we will always continue to improve, but we're willing to improve. We're never going to stop and just rest. Oh, that was great. We're always constantly in motion. So I think that's a great thing. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Millerberg?
I did not know that the father of our student that was lost was going to be here tonight, but that loss has weighed heavily on me. I was a teacher for many years, and before we had all the identifying markers, I was over the difficult behavior units in Ogden schools and in here in our district. And so I know what it's like to have those students that are not accessing what we have to offer them as students. And I know what it's like to be a teacher and prepare and emotionally and physically want so desperately for these students to thrive, and they choose not to. So I wrote a few comments because I had that heavy on my mind. I think it's so fun and exciting to visit the schools and watch the students thrive.
and to be at those events. And yet we are very aware that those kinds of other choices of students are very evident. I run fairly regularly at the park just below Union. And when the bells ring at school, there's an exodus out the lower parking lot, and there are students that choose right from the beginning bell not to stay in school. And those are not the events that we highlight here. And yet they're the events that weigh heavy on us as we make decisions. So my comments tonight are, when we think about cities, schools, neighborhoods, we most often think about the physical infrastructure, roads and fire stations, businesses and schools, those buildings in our community. Each of those structures have physical infrastructures that connect them for a purpose. For those organizations to work and thrive as well as they can, we also need a psychological infrastructure. We need a sense of interconnection, the same way our communities have satellites, wires, and pipes to function as communities. We need to be psychologically connected. The networks that do that for our communities are faith in one another, a sense of common purpose and shared values, and interdependence on one another. When that happens, we thrive. We dispel disillusionment and discouragement, and in others and in our institutions. Since school has started, I have made a concerted effort to go to each of the schools within District 1. I have wanted to know what it was like to participate in that infrastructure. I have attended SCC meetings, PTA meetings, community councils, and I just don't think that there's any way to express how many of those entities that are going on, that are volunteer positions, are making our schools function. We can't give enough credit. I know that they're their students and that's why they're there, but they do so much to support us. And I just want to give a shout out to those unsung heroes that are coming on their own time and participating in community organizations in the schools and outside of the schools that are making our schools thrive. The Boys and Girls Club, all kinds of organizations within our community. And to recognize that the police force, those people who are protecting us and trying to provide services for us, are just as much a part of that team. And they want the kids to thrive too. And somewhere, somehow, that's breaking down. And I know that there isn't anybody in this room that doesn't want that to happen. We want those kids to thrive. And it's our goal to reach out and make that happen, because our hearts ache when that doesn't happen. So I just want to state that I do believe that as a board member and as all of the board that I've seen them function, have that in mind. And we're open to those suggestions, but that we need to work with the infrastructure of the entire community and recognize that so much is being done and that legally we are bound by a lot of constraints that are not in the best interests. And I think with this discussion of Amendment A, shame on us not to stand up and take a stand, because those are the reasons why our kids are not thriving. That's just one, but there are others. So tonight, I just, with a heavy heart, say there's much to be excited and appreciative of that's happening in our community. And there are things that we need to fix, and we're all a part of that.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Tingy?
Thank you. So many good thoughts have been shared, and I appreciate Ms. Milliberg's recognition of all the amazing work that's happening at the schools with the volunteers. I've been able to spend quite a bit of time the last couple of weeks in my neighborhood elementary school, getting a volunteer program up and running that we've done for several years to support students in learning their math facts. And it's a simple thing, but this year there's more volunteers than ever before, and I'm so grateful because they're recognizing that, yeah, the old adage of it does take a village, and it does take everybody having that shared common purpose of supporting our youth, because our youth are our future, and it's not just cliche, it's real. And we've been reminded about that tonight, how real it is. We're not just pretending and playing at school. We're not just up here speaking whatever's on our mind. This is real, and it's making a difference. And I sincerely believe it's making a difference for the positive in so many ways. But as has been mentioned earlier too, we can always look how to do things better and how to correct when things start going off in a direction that maybe is not the best for our common shared purpose. And to that point, I just want to put a shout out for our school community councils. Excuse me. They have a lot on their list of responsibilities, but by having a council get together and talk about their school, what their data is, what their needs are, it's parents, it's teachers, administrators, and by having those robust discussions at the school level, a lot of really great things happen. And so with that in mind, tomorrow we start our annual SCC training for all SCC members, and I encourage every one of them to come. Even if you've been doing SCC for years and years, you will come and you will be reminded of those responsibilities. You may learn something or hear something in a way that you haven't heard before that will help you in your work in the SCC this year, so that your council can make a difference in your school. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nipper? I'm off. I appreciate what's been said. I also was heartbroken as that father shared with us the experiences, and so very heartbroken for that loss of life. And I excused myself during the rest of patron comments when the father got up to leave, because I felt I couldn't sit here. I needed to go talk to him. I feel like several things have been going through my mind. I know we have Thrive Time. We have that curriculum that we've developed that is a great curriculum, right? To start teaching kids, even at the elementary school level, how to, be responsible for themselves with their, emotions, and how to be aware of their emotions in healthy ways and communicate. I've just been thinking a lot about, while we were here, I was looking up our bullying policy. Nancy and I sit on the policy committee with Andrew, and looking at all that we have online about bullying. And I think as a board member in the last 4 years, I have absolutely received calls about parents of victims that have been begging, can't anything more be done? And as Dr. Robbins mentioned, there are ways in which we're legally bound, a responsibility to educate all children, and a lot of other things, including the Student Privacy Act. But I too feel that we can do better. I feel like when we were just in last policy meeting going over the different levels of offense And it's so great, how student, behaviors now they have and response team, how they have it very spelled out with, what level of threat this is, and then what's the recourse that happens. I recently was contacted just this last week about an incident in a school, and I think we need to take a greater look at two things. One is that if we're going to err on any side of what to do about it, err on the side of take every incident that has been reported on the side of what's the most we can do to help this situation. And I know we do that, but there's different levels. If you know what I'm saying, I'd rather it be taken a little more seriously, not in punitive ways, not in consequences for the kids, but in interventions with counselors to talk to those kids. Because a lot of times what happens is these kids are experimenting, and if they, kids that are maybe not make the right choice, and then there isn't much intervention that happens, then how much easier is it to do it again? And so I think we do need to look a little more deeply at the level of sitting down with counselors and talking. And then the other thought I had is, what can we be doing more at the elementary school that's proactive? I know we do these little units. My kids was just talking to me about it actually the other day, where we drill into our students what to do when there's bullying, right? How to stop bullying. And we have peer mentors and we have a lot of amazing programs, but is there something more we can do proactively to create a sense of belonging for our kids at the elementary school level? Is there more we can do? And I think the answer probably would always be yes. Yes, there's more we can do. As Mrs. Millerberg talked about the infrastructure and the network, what more can we do? And I think that we can have some more involved discussions about that. I think when I look at what we have when I Google Canyon School District and bullying, I think we do have some work that we can do, and not to diminish what we do have in place. So that's all I want to say tonight. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so in follow up to your comments, Holly, I actually just thinking out loud on this. The training that we went to for Davis School District, that they shared with us a lot of things. I think that that's an excellent starting point, because as they worked with the Department of Justice on certain student offenses and what they were allowed to do as a district versus what they weren't, I was impressed by that. And I think that would be an excellent place to begin. Rather than boring you with any more of my comments, I just want to recognize Liz here as Region 17 PTA President. And I'm wondering if you might want to make a statement about the Meet the Candidates Night that you are sponsoring.
I'm Liz Miles, as Amanda said, Region 17 PTA Director. And Region 17 PTA is hosting 2 Meet the Candidates nights that are open to everyone in our community. There is going to be one on October 3rd, which will be held at, sorry, I can't remember which is which, but I don't have my flyer. One of them will be at Midvale Middle School, and it is for, other end, Indian Hills Middle School. And it is primarily for candidates who are covering the south end of our district. So any candidates who cover our whole district have been invited to both nights. But for candidates who just cover one city, particularly maybe Draper or Midvale, they will be only at one. And then on October 9th, it will be at Midvale Middle School, Union Middle School. Sorry, I wasn't more prepared. And at both of those events, we will have a education portion at the beginning where we talk about the educational or the amendments to the Constitution. Utah PTA has taken a position of opposed to Amendment A and also in support of Amendment B, which is the raising the cap on the trust lands money. So we will be discussing both of those there to try to educate the public on what will be on the amendment. And we would love for everyone to attend, anyone in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think with all of that, we have come to the end of our meeting and I will pronounce this meeting adjourned.